The Miami sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden hue over the skyline. It was a city that thrived on glamour and ambition, a city where glistening high-rises stood beside beaches that never slept, and where luxury developments seemed to sprout from the ground almost overnight. For David Beckham, Miami had become more than a city. It had become a project, a dream he had nurtured through Inter Miami, the club he had poured his energy and resources into building. It was here, in the heart of South Florida, that Beckham was learning to live not just as a global football icon, but as a businessman and community figure. On this particular morning, his calendar was full, yet one meeting stood out among the rest. He had been invited to a private presentation by one of the largest real estate development groups in the United States. They had been chasing him for months, dangling an irresistible offer. A multi-million-dollar contract to make him the global face of their newest luxury resort project in the outskirts of Miami. The offer on paper seemed perfect. It would tie his brand to a landmark project, one that promised job opportunities, economic growth, and a shiny new addition to the region's tourism landscape. Beckham, who had always sought to combine his image with ventures that resonated with prestige and class, felt that the proposal at least deserved his attention. The meeting was held in a sleek glass conference room on the top floor of a downtown tower. From the window, Beckham could see the vast city stretching toward the ocean, the turquoise waters glimmering in the distance. Inside, a polished table stretched the length of the room, covered with glossy renderings, 3D models, and elaborate brochures that depicted the resort they wanted him to endorse. "Mr. Beckham," began a tall man in a tailored navy suit, his American accent smooth and confident, "this is not just another hotel. This is going to be the crown jewel of Miami's future. Imagine a five-star resort with international appeal, entertainment facilities, shopping centers, golf courses, all under one brand, and your face, your legacy attached to it. We believe no one embodies elegance and aspiration like you do." Beckham leaned forward, examining the designs. He had been in hundreds of such meetings before. He was no stranger to marketing campaigns, branding exercises, or endorsements. His entire career had been punctuated by high-profile deals with some of the biggest companies in the world. But something about this pitch felt grander, more ambitious. And of course, another executive chimed in, "There's the financial side. We're offering a multi-million-dollar contract for your image rights, with additional revenue share once the resort is operational. This is not just sponsorship, this is partnership." Beckham nodded thoughtfully. The money was staggering even for someone who had seen more than his fair share of lucrative deals. It wasn't just about the cash, it was about influence, status, and cementing his presence in the business fabric of Miami. For a moment, Beckham thought about the long road that had brought him here. From the fields of East London, where his father taught him how to curve a ball, to the stadiums of Old Trafford, the Bernabeu, and the Parc des Princes to Los Angeles and beyond. Football had given him everything, but it had also led him to new roles, new responsibilities. He wasn't just a player anymore. He was a club owner, a father, a man shaping projects that went beyond the pitch. "This is impressive," he said finally, his voice calm, measured. "It's ambitious. I can see how this could be something special for the city." The executives smiled, sensing victory. "Exactly," one of them said. "This is the kind of vision Miami needs. And with your involvement, it will send a message to the world. It will show that Miami isn't just about football, it's about lifestyle, luxury, and the future." They raised their glasses of sparkling water in a subtle toast, as if the deal was already sealed. The following days moved quickly. Lawyers drafted contracts. Beckham's advisors pored over the details. The developers continued to send promotional material, each more glamorous than the last. There were sketches of infinity pools that seemed to merge with the ocean, rooftop lounges with panoramic views, and advertisements that already bore his name alongside the resort's logo. The deal was announced in principle through select media outlets, sparking excitement. Articles praised Beckham for his business acumen, noting how he was expanding his influence beyond football. Fans commented online, proud that their club president was becoming a symbol of Miami's modern renaissance. It seemed like everything was falling into place. And then, one afternoon, during a routine conversation with one of his community liaisons at Inter Miami, Beckham heard something that froze him. "They're building the resort on the Edgewater site, right?" the man asked. "Yes," Beckham replied casually. "Why?" There was a pause. "David, that's where the old community field is. You know, the one in the outskirts where the kids play every weekend. That's the only proper open space for soccer in that neighborhood. If the resort goes up there, the field is gone." Beckham blinked, confused. "The field? You mean, The one with the broken goalposts? The one near the church? That's the one, the liaison confirmed. It's not glamorous, but it's theirs. The kids love it. Without it, they'll have nowhere to play. That field is basically their academy. Beckham sat back in his chair, stunned. He hadn't known. He had been shown images of futuristic hotels, pools, and lobbies, but never the reality of what was being lost. The next day, driven by unease, Beckham asked his driver to take him to the site. It was late afternoon when he arrived. The neighborhood was nothing like the glossy brochures. It was a modest area with small houses, murals painted on walls, and families gathering outside their porches. He stepped onto the dusty field, where the grass was patchy and the lines faded. A group of children were playing with a ball that had long lost its shine, but their laughter filled the air. One boy scored a scrappy goal, and his teammates erupted in cheers as if it were the winning strike in a World Cup final. Beckham stood there for a moment, unnoticed, taking it all in. It reminded him of his own youth, though different. He hadn't grown up with fields like this. He had grown up with a father who drove him miles to practice, with structured academies, with opportunities that these kids would never see. And that was what hit him hardest. Eventually, a few children recognized him. Their game stopped and they ran over, wide-eyed, excited. To them, Beckham wasn't just a celebrity. He was football itself. "Mr. Beckham," one boy shouted. "Is it true? They're gonna build the hotel here?" Beckham hesitated. "That's what I've heard." The boy's smile faded. "But this is our place. This is where we play every day. You had academies. You had Manchester United. We only have this field. If they take it, we've got nothing." The words pierced him. Simple, honest, undeniable. Another child, a girl with braids, chimed in, "Don't let them take it away. Please. We don't have anywhere else to go." Beckham felt his chest tighten. He wanted to tell them it wasn't true, that the field would stay, that the hotel was just a dream on paper. But he couldn't. Not yet. That evening, back at his home, Beckham couldn't shake the images from his mind. The field, the children, the ball worn down from use. He sat in his living room with his wife, Victoria, who noticed his troubled expression. "What's wrong, David?" she asked gently. "They're building the resort on that community field," he said quietly. "The one those kids use every day. It's the only place they have. And I signed the contract without even realizing." Victoria put a hand on his arm. "David, you've always followed your heart. If this doesn't feel right, you know what you have to do." He nodded, but the weight of the decision was immense. This wasn't just about money. It was about reputation, legal battles, obligations. Walking away from the contract wouldn't be simple. But doing nothing, that would betray the children he had seen with his own eyes. The next morning, Beckham called his team together. Rodrigo, his advisor, warned him of the consequences. "David, listen," Rodrigo said. "You've signed preliminary agreements. Backing out now means lawsuits, millions in damages, headlines calling you unreliable. You've worked hard to build credibility as a businessman. Are you willing to risk all of that?" Beckham looked at him steadily. "I can't put my name on something that destroys kids' only chance to play. I had opportunities because I had fields, academies, support. They don't. If we take that away, we're taking away their future." There was silence. The decision was made. That evening, as Beckham sat on his balcony overlooking the Miami skyline, he felt the weight of both relief and fear. Relief because he knew he would not abandon those children. Fear because he knew the storm that was coming. Headlines, legal threats, financial losses. But for the first time since the contract had been presented, he felt certain of one thing. He had chosen the right side. And thus began a battle that would soon capture the attention of not just Miami, but the entire nation. The news broke faster than Beckham could have anticipated. Within hours of whispers circulating that the luxury resort would be built on the old community field, local papers had published exposés, radio stations were running heated debates, and social media was ablaze with outrage. "Beckham sells out Miami's children," one headline screamed. "From soccer hero to corporate puppet," another sneered. It stung, not just because of the words, but because they echoed the truth he had only just begun to confront. The backlash grew relentless. Outside Inter Miami's training facility, small groups of protesters gathered. Some carried handmade signs, "Save our field," "Kids over hotels," "Beckham betrayed us." Others chanted, their voices carrying across the parking lot. Inside, players and staff exchanged uneasy glances. Though Beckham wasn't directly responsible for the day-to-day outrage of the public, his name was now intertwined with the controversy. For years, he had been seen as the champion of grassroots football in the U.S., the man who had brought global attention to MLS. Now, people questioned if he had traded that reputation for money. Beckham sat in his office, scrolling through the comments on his phone. Messages of anger, disappointment, and heartbreak poured in. Parents wrote about how the field was the only safe place for their kids to play. Coaches described how they had kept children off the streets by gathering them there every evening. Even older teens wrote about how the field had saved them from drugs and gangs. Each message cut deeper. The worst came during his next visit to the community. Determined to face the criticism head-on, Beckham asked to meet local families at the field. He arrived quietly without an entourage, hoping to listen more than speak. When he stepped onto the dusty ground, the atmosphere was heavy. Dozens of parents and children had gathered, their expressions filled with a mixture of anger and hurt. One father stepped forward, his voice trembling with controlled fury. "My son comes here every day, Mr. Beckham. This field keeps him safe, keeps him dreaming. And you were supposed to understand. You played the game. You had opportunities. And now you're helping to take ours away." Beckham tried to respond, but the words stuck in his throat. Then came the voice that silenced everyone. A boy no older than 12, standing with a torn soccer ball under his arm. "You had academies, Mr. Beckham. You had Manchester United. We only have this." The boy's eyes were wide, searching, as if begging for an explanation that would make sense. But Beckham had none. His chest tightened, and for the first time in years, tears burned his eyes in public. "I didn't know," he whispered hoarsely. "I swear to you, I didn't know they would take this field. But I see it now. I see you. And I promise, I won't let them take it from you." There was no applause, no cheers. Only silence. The crowd didn't yet know whether to believe him. That night, Beckham returned home broken. Victoria listened quietly as he recounted the confrontation. He described the boy's words, the anger of the parents, the silence that followed his promise. "You can't fix this with apologies alone," Victoria said gently. "If you're serious, you have to act. Publicly. You have to show them you're willing to risk everything." Beckham nodded slowly. He knew she was right. The next morning, he gathered his advisors and legal team. Rodrigo, ever the pragmatist, warned him again. "David, pulling out of this contract isn't just bad business. It's financial suicide. They will sue. They will drag your name through the mud. Years of work building your credibility could crumble." Beckham leaned forward, his jaw set. "Rodrigo, I built my career on hard choices. I've been booed in stadiums, criticized in the press, doubted on the field. I survived because I stayed true to what mattered. If I betray these kids, I lose more than money. I lose myself." The room fell silent. His lawyers exchanged worried looks, but they knew he had made up his mind. By midday, Beckham's decision went public. He released a statement through his official channels. "I regret to inform you that I can no longer be associated with the Edgewater Resort project. I was unaware that this development would destroy a community field that means everything to local children and families. Once I realized, I knew I could not continue. I deeply apologize to the community, and I commit to standing with them to protect this field and what it represents." The statement went viral. News anchors read it on air, talk shows debated it, and social media exploded. "Too little, too late," some critics said. "Maybe he's finally listening," others countered. The real test came that evening, when Beckham returned to the field for a town hall-style meeting organized by local leaders. Hundreds gathered. Some came out of curiosity, others out of skepticism, many out of anger. Beckham stood on a small makeshift stage, dressed simply, no luxury, no entourage, just himself and a microphone. "I came here today because I need to face you," he began. His voice was steady, but his eyes revealed the weight of the moment. "When I agreed to that contract, I didn't know what it would cost you. But that doesn't excuse me. I should have known. I should have asked. I didn't, and for that I am sorry." He paused, letting the words settle. The crowd remained tense. "I had opportunities as a boy. My parents drove me to practices, I had proper academies, I had safe fields. That was my privilege. Many of you don't have that. This field, this dusty ground, it's everything. And if I allow it to be taken away, I'm no better than the people who don't care about your children's dreams. So hear me clearly, I will not let them take it. Not while my name has any meaning." For a long moment, silence hung in the air. Then from somewhere in the crowd, a clap. Then another. Then a wave of applause, cautious at first, but building into thunderous support. Beckham's eyes glistened. He knew the road ahead would be brutal, but for the first time since this nightmare began, he felt the crowd believed him. Over the following weeks, the conflict escalated. The developers launched a legal campaign, demanding millions in damages for Beckham's withdrawal. They painted him as unreliable, claiming he had breached agreements. But while their lawyers waged war in the courts, Beckham waged his battle in the public arena. He gave interviews, spoke at schools, visited the field regularly. He was photographed kicking a ball with the kids, listening to parents' stories, attending community meetings. Slowly, the narrative began to shift. Yes, he had made a mistake, but now he was fighting to correct it. One day, a young reporter asked him bluntly, "Mr. Beckham, why risk everything? You could walk away quietly, pay the penalty, move on with your businesses. Why stand in the middle of all this?" Beckham thought for a moment before answering. "Because I've spent my whole life playing a game that gave me everything. And the only reason I had that chance was because I had places to play. These kids deserve that same chance. If I turn my back on them, I turn my back on the very game that made me who I am." The quote spread like wildfire. Headlines shifted. Beckham fights for kids' field. From villain to ally, Beckham's redemption. Still, not everyone was convinced. Critics accused him of a publicity stunt. Business leaders complained he was sabotaging economic progress. Some fans worried that the lawsuits could harm Inter Miami financially. But Beckham pressed on. For him, it wasn't about being universally loved. It was about standing in front of those children again and knowing he hadn't failed them. The turning point came when he was invited back to the field for a community soccer day. Hundreds of children showed up, clutching soccer balls, some wearing Inter Miami shirts, others in makeshift jerseys. Beckham walked onto the field, greeted by cheers this time, not silence. A boy approached him, the same one who had confronted him weeks earlier. "Do you really mean it, Mr. Beckham? You're not gonna let them take this field?" Beckham knelt down, looking him in the eyes. "I mean it. I gave up millions to stand here with you. And I'll keep fighting until this field belongs to you forever." The boy nodded slowly, then handed Beckham the worn-out soccer ball he had been carrying. "Then this is yours until we have a new one." Beckham held the ball close, his throat tightening. It wasn't just leather and stitching, it was trust, fragile and priceless. By the end of that day, Beckham knew there was no turning back. He had stepped into a fight that would define not his wealth, not his brand, but his legacy. And as he left the field, he felt the community walking with him, not just in body, but in spirit. The outrage had awakened something greater, and it was only the beginning. The weeks after Beckham's public withdrawal from the resort project felt like walking a tightrope. On one side, the community had begun to embrace him again, cheering his visits to the field and sharing their stories with him. On the other side, the developers had unleashed a storm of lawsuits, demanding damages that reached into the tens of millions. Every day brought a new headline. Beckham sued for breach of contract. Developers claimed betrayal. Luxury resort delayed indefinitely. Beckham wasn't naive. He had known this would happen. Still, the weight of it pressed down on him. At night, when the house grew quiet and his family had gone to sleep, he would sit alone on the balcony, staring at the Miami skyline, wondering how much he was truly risking. His reputation, his finances, even the stability of Inter Miami, all of it could be collateral damage. But then he would remember the children at the field. Their laughter, their worn-out ball. The boy who had handed him that ball as a symbol of trust. Every time doubt crept in, those images pulled him back to clarity. Rodrigo, his advisor, urged him to be strategic. "David, the lawsuits are bad enough. If you want to turn this around, you need allies. You can't fight billion-dollar corporations alone. You need the public. You need America behind you." Beckham nodded slowly. "Then we give them something to believe in. We don't just save the field, we build something bigger." The idea came late one night, sketched out on a notepad at his kitchen table. Field of Hope. Would be more than a campaign. Would be a movement. Not just to protect one dusty field in Miami, but to raise funds to build a new modern community center. A place with proper pitches, classrooms, safe spaces for after-school programs. A field that could inspire generations. The next morning, Beckham presented the idea to his team. "We can't just say no to the hotel. We have to say yes to something better. Something the whole country can support." Rodrigo raised an eyebrow. "So, what? You want to build a new facility? That costs millions, David." Beckham leaned forward, determination in his eyes. "Then we find millions. From fans, from businesses, from anyone who believes that kids deserve more than empty promises. We'll call it the Field of Hope. And I'll be the first to put money in." The official launch happened at a packed press conference downtown. Cameras flashed, microphones lined the podium, and reporters jostled for space. Beckham stepped up, wearing a simple black suit, no glitz or flair, just conviction. "I've spent my life playing this game we all love," he began, "and I know firsthand the power of a field. It's more than grass and lines, it's where dreams are born. When I learned that a resort project would take away the only field these children had, I knew I couldn't stand by. So today, I'm asking America to stand with me. We will build a new center, modern, safe, open to every child who wants to play. We're calling it the Field of Hope, and I'm pledging $5 million of my own money to start it." The room erupted in questions. Will this be enough to replace the lost field? How will you raise the rest of the funds? Are you challenging the developers directly? Beckham raised his hand, quieting the noise. "This isn't about me versus them. This is about kids. I'm inviting every person, every company, every teammate I've ever had to join me. Together, we can build something that shows the world what football and America truly stand for." The campaign took off like wildfire. Social media lit up with the hashtag Field of Hope. Celebrities retweeted it. Former teammates from Manchester United and Real Madrid posted videos of support. MLS stars pledged donations. Even Hollywood actors and musicians chimed in, sharing their own stories of how sports had kept them off the streets or given them purpose. Within a week, millions of dollars had been pledged. Small donations poured in too, $5 here, $10 there, from ordinary people across the country. One mother from Texas sent in $20 with a note. "My son plays on a cracked basketball court. I know what it means to have a safe place. Thank you." Beckham read every message he could. They filled him with strength. But not everyone was supportive. The developers countered with their own PR blitz. They accused Beckham of grandstanding, claiming his campaign was a smokescreen to cover his contractual failures. They promised new jobs, tourism revenue, tax benefits, all of which they said Beckham was jeopardizing. One night, as Beckham watched the evening news, a business analyst argued, "This isn't about children. This is about celebrity ego. Beckham wants to play the hero, but he's costing Miami millions in lost investment." The words stung, but Beckham knew better than to engage in mudslinging. Instead, he doubled down on his message. "This isn't about me," he told a reporter the next day. "If I wanted to protect myself, I would have stayed silent. This is about children who deserve a place to dream, and I'll prove it by making every dollar count." As weeks passed, the Field of Hope campaign became a national conversation. Community rallies sprang up across Miami, with families wearing t-shirts emblazoned with the project's logo. Kids organized charity games, raising pennies and dollars that added up to something powerful. Beckham attended as many events as he could. At one, a little girl handed him a mason jar filled with coins. "This is all I've saved for a year," she said shyly. "I want to help build the field." Beckham knelt, taking the jar with both hands. "This means more than any $1 million check," he told her softly, and he meant it. Still, the fight was not without temptation. One afternoon, Rodrigo walked into Beckham's office with a folder. "There's an offer you should see," he said cautiously. Inside was a proposal from a major corporation. They were willing to donate $10 million, enough to cover half the project's cost. The catch: Beckham would have to be their global spokesperson for a new product line. His face, his voice, his brand, all tied to their marketing. Rodrigo looked uneasy. "David, this could fund nearly the whole thing. You wouldn't have to struggle with fundraising anymore." But Beckham didn't let him finish. He closed the folder. "No." Rodrigo blinked. "You don't even want to think about it?" "No," Beckham said firmly, "because that's the same mistake I made before. Taking money without asking what it cost. If I turn these kids into an advertising campaign, I betray them all over again. This field has to belong to them, not to a brand." Rodrigo exhaled slowly. "Then we keep fighting." The decision, once public, only fueled more respect. Articles praised him for refusing easy money. Parents lauded his integrity. Even skeptics began to soften. One commentator on national TV summed it up: "Whether you like Beckham or not, you have to admit, he's putting his money where his mouth is." That's rare in today's world. Months into the campaign, Beckham stood again on the community field, this time flanked by city officials and architects. The plans for the new center were unveiled on large boards: 2 full-size benches, classrooms for tutoring, a small library, and community spaces. The crowd erupted in cheers. Beckham turned to the children clustered at the door. "This is for you," he said. "Not a hotel or a business deal. A place to play, to learn, to grow. And it's only happening because all of us stood together." A boy shouted from the crowd, "When will it be ready?" Beckham smiled. "Soon." They doubled down on legal threats, but their public image crumbled. The more they attacked Beckham, the more the community rallied around him. It was no longer just about a field, it was about dignity, about proving that ordinary people could stand up to corporations and win. Through it all, Beckham remained focused. Every time he wavered, every time exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, he thought of the boy who had said, "We only have this." That voice guided him like a compass. By the end of the campaign's third month, the Field of Hope Fund had surpassed its target. Donations poured in from around the world. From London, Madrid, Los Angeles, fans who had followed Beckham's career now supported his cause. It was as if his journey had come full circle, from a boy with opportunities to a man determined to give them away. The groundbreaking ceremony was scheduled. The designs were finalized. The dream was becoming real. And Beckham knew this was bigger than football. The morning of the grand opening dawned with skies so blue they looked painted, the kind of perfect weather that seemed designed for celebration. In the outskirts of Miami, where the old dusty community field had once stood, a brand new facility now gleamed in the sunlight, the Field of Hope Community Center. The complex stretched across several acres, a testament to perseverance and unity. Two pristine pitches lay side by side, their grass lush and meticulously lined. A modern clubhouse stood nearby, housing classrooms, a library, and a multi-purpose hall. Murals painted by local artists adorned the walls, depicting children chasing soccer balls, the Miami skyline, and one unmistakable figure. Beckham, not as a celebrity in suits, but as a man holding hands with kids on a field. Families began arriving hours before the official ceremony. Children in pink Inter Miami shirts ran excitedly around the new pitches, their laughter echoing in the air. Parents carried cameras, grandparents held babies, and local leaders mingled with volunteers and donors. It felt less like an inauguration and more like a festival, a collective victory for a community that had fought for its place in the world. Beckham arrived quietly, his wife and children at his side. As he stepped out of the car, a wave of applause erupted. People cheered, clapped, and shouted his name, not as fans at a stadium might, but as neighbors welcoming one of their own. Beckham smiled, humbled. He wasn't here as the global icon, the superstar. He was here as David, the man who had stood with them when it mattered. Walking toward the stage, he paused often to shake hands, hug children, pose for photos. One little girl tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on us." Beckham knelt and smiled. "It's you who never gave up. This place is yours." The ceremony began with speeches from community leaders, city officials, and architects. Each one praised the resilience of the neighborhood, the unity of donors, and the commitment of Beckham. But everyone waited for his words. Finally, the host called him up. Beckham approached the podium, taking in the sea of faces before him. The children sat cross-legged near the front, their eyes wide with anticipation. The pink shirts of Inter Miami dotted the crowd like blossoms of hope. He began softly, but with conviction. "Years ago, I stood on this very ground when it was just a dusty field. I saw children playing with a worn-out ball, laughing as if they were in the World Cup. I saw dreams bigger than the field could hold. And I realized something. Dreams don't need luxury to grow. They just need a place." He paused, glancing at the new pitches behind him. "When I first signed that contract, I thought I was doing something good for Miami. But I didn't ask the most important question. What would it cost? When I found out it meant taking away this community's only field, I knew I couldn't continue. Walking away wasn't easy. It cost money, reputation, sleepless nights. But standing here now, I know it was the right decision. Just look around you. This is bigger than any resort." The crowd cheered, applause rolling like thunder. Beckham's voice was more emotional. "Because I know I was lucky. I had parents who supported me, coaches who guided me, safe fields to play on. Not every child has that. And I realized it's my responsibility to give back the opportunities one was given. That's what this center is about. It's not just for football. It's for studying, for learning, for finding hope when life feels tough. It's a place that belongs to you, the community." He took a deep breath, his voice thick with feeling. Money can build resorts, but it cannot buy the dreams of a child. Only love, community, and commitment can do that. And I promise you, as long as I have a voice, I'll keep fighting for children to have fields like this, here in Miami and beyond. The applause became a standing ovation. Parents wiped away tears. Children clapped and shouted his name. Even city officials, usually composed, were visibly moved. After the ribbon cutting, the children were the first to storm the new field. Hundreds of them raced across the grass, their shoes kicking up tiny sprays of dirt, their laughter filling the air like music. Beckham stood at the sidelines, watching, his heart swelling. It was everything he had hoped for. One boy, the same who had once told him, "We only have this," approached with wide eyes. He wore a brand new Inter Miami jersey, but he carried the same old ball he had given Beckham months earlier. "Mr. Beckham," the boy said shyly, "we kept playing while you were building this, and now we have something better than we ever dreamed." Beckham crouched, holding the boy's shoulders. "This field belongs to you. Take care of it. And never forget, you can achieve anything if you hold on to your dream." The boy grinned and handed Beckham the old ball again. "This is yours. You kept your promise." Beckham held the ball, tears in his eyes. It was scuffed, faded, nearly falling apart. But to him, it was the most valuable trophy he'd ever received. As the day went on, Beckham played with the children. He passed, dribbled, even let them tackle him. Parents snapped photos and laughter echoed across the new pitches. The sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the scene. It wasn't a World Cup final or a Champions League night, but to Beckham, it felt even bigger. Later, as the crowd thinned and families headed home, Beckham sat alone on the bleachers, watching the children still running. Rodrigo approached quietly, sitting beside him. "You did it," Rodrigo said softly. Beckham shook his head. "We did it. The community, the kids, everyone who believed. I just listened." Rodrigo smiled. "You risked everything for this. And in the end, you gained something money could never buy." Beckham looked out at the field, where the boy was still kicking the ball, his laughter echoing into the twilight. That's the point. Legacy isn't about wealth or buildings with your name on them. It's about the lives you touch. And this is my legacy. That night, as Beckham drove home with his family, he felt lighter than he had in months. He had weathered storms, endured criticism, and walked through fire. But in the end, he had helped create something real, something lasting. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The field of hope was not just a center in Miami. It was a message to the world that football and life was about community, sacrifice, and love. In years to come, he imagined those children growing up, some becoming players, others teachers, doctors, parents. But all of them would remember that once in their neighborhood, someone chose them over money. And that memory would be worth more than any contract he had ever signed.